Welcome one, welcome all, and welcome to Friday Fright Time, where every week I, Connor, along with my trusty sidekicks, Kofi and Stu, dissect horror movies from throughout history, tearing our favourite, most memorable moments to pieces. This week, Kofi's taken a little bit of extra time off the show, but it's episode 23, so me and Stu are going to be delving into The Number 23, a 2007 thriller movie starring Jim Carrey. Now, Stu, bit of a complex plot this week.
The thing is, it starts with all these facts, right? At the beginning, it's like throwing up all these facts about the number 23, right? So it's like the Mayans believed the world would end in 2012. 20 plus 1 plus 2 is 23. But that's not what the Mayans believed in, and most of the facts they show are incorrect. So
Yeah. It's true, actually.
It doesn't work because they've just lied just to fit the narrative of this film.
I quite like the concept of the intro sequence because it puts up random events in history and how they kind of link to the number 23. So it's like the sinking of the Titanic, the birth and the death of Shakespeare, the day the US declared war on Germany. Overall, there's 23 coincidences that are listed in this title sequence. So it's like cool as a concept that they've done it. But yeah, as you say, some of them are just wrong.
Yeah, they're just wrong.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly. They pepper the film with, like, obviously, like, the number 23 shown in random places, like, you know, in the background, just where you might not notice it.
A lot of it feels quite on the nose with the 23. They make it so fucking obvious that, like, a 23 is, like, staring you in the face. But there were a couple of times where I paused the film and, like, did a bit of digging. Like, I would kind of spot something and be like, that is too weird a thing to be coincidental. So, for example, later in the film, like, Jim Carrey's character stays in a hotel called the King Edward Hotel. And I looked at, like, King Edward, and the last King Edward was born on the 23rd. So it's like
Amazing.
little things like that. But, like, again, the main argument of the film is how ridiculous or realistic you think this theory is. Because when the movie came out, it was very, very divisive. What do you think of the whole 23 theory?
I wouldn't necessarily put my tinfoil hat on, like, that hard to, like, start seeing numbers and everything. Even the film says it itself, right? If you're, like, looking for something, you could easily find it. Like, I didn't notice things like the King Edward Hotel, but I did notice, like, later in the film when he wakes up in, like, the middle of the night, the time that he wakes up on the clock is, like, 11:12, which if you add it up is obviously 23.
23,
and there was just,
yeah.
like, little things like that, which were, like, the ones that I noticed were quite nicely woven in. They did release the film on the 23rd of February, which, so obviously they stuck to, like, a release date, which was quite clever. I don't know if you saw this, but the weirdest thing is when it came out on DVD, guess how many million the film made?
Oh, 6.
No, it was actually 27 million. So I bet that pissed them right off, didn't it?
Imagine they hit 23 million and we're like, right, we need to stop circulating this DVD
get it out,
now.
Get it out of there. I like the way they wove in, like, the bookshop at the beginning was named A Novel Fate, and the author of the book names was Top Secrets, which is Top Secrets.
Yeah, yeah.
I would have felt better if they didn't reveal that later in the film, because I noticed it straight away.
Yeah, it's too strange a name to be, like, a real name.
Yes.
It's not like, you know, Tom Marvel or Riddle becomes I am Lord Voldemort. Like, that's not something you would spot straight away.
Yeah, Top Secrets was like, what the fuck is that? And I almost immediately kind of realised what it was.
To get the ball rolling on the overall plot of the film, so you got Jim Carrey playing one of the more serious roles that he's had in his career, actually. In general, I actually really like Jim Carrey in more serious roles. I'm not necessarily a big fan of his Ace Ventura kind of persona in films. I think it gets a bit old too quick and a bit tiresome, but when he gets down to it, he can be a decent, serious character, and I think he does quite well here.
Well, I think Jim Carrey is, like, really good if you like one of those, like, bollocks, look how zany I can be type comedies. I'm personally not a fan. Like, I think it's too, like, overly animated and just a bit too, like, look how silly I am, and I don't find that funny. But there are some serious films where he's incredible in one of my all-time favourite films, which is The Truman Show.
Oh, brilliant film.
There's this weird, like, transition in the plot between him and Fingerling, the detective, right? And
yes,
it keeps, like, flicking back between, you know, Jim Carrey's character and Fingerling, and it just kept jumping around, and I found that, like, quite off-putting, to be honest. On the detective side of things, I didn't enjoy that. On the rest of it, I found it quite enjoyable. So there was this, like, half and half thing for me throughout.
it's very, like, juxtaposed, because the main plot of the film is that Carrey finds a book, The Number 23 by Top Secrets, or Top Secrets, and he is reading the book, and he starts noticing parallels between what's happening in the book and his own life. He feels like the book's describing him and his past, so he's trying to imagine himself as Top Secret in the book. So when it shows you those scenes in the film, it's Jim Carrey as like a film noir kind of detective, and you've got the sort of, you know, the smoky kind of atmosphere, and you've got the little jazz trumpets going in the background. Very generic type of noir, though. It's too different to the rest of the film. I really like when he's just Walter Sparrow, and it feels like two halves of not the same movie.
It felt like really detached. I just didn't enjoy the detective side of things. Like, I didn't find that enjoyable at all, and therefore, until they kind of kicked that out of the film, which was about 2/3 of the way through.
2/3, 23.
There you go, yeah. Maybe that's why they did it.
I wasn't that invested in the mystery of what was happening with Top Secrets, and is it Laura Tollins?
That's it, yeah.
It's described in the book, the number 23, that Topsy knew a girl. She went missing on her 23rd birthday, and nobody knew what happened to her. So the whole film, Carrey is trying to unravel that mystery, while simultaneously, you know, talking to his wife and his son and being like, oh my fucking god, guys, 23's linked to my life. Like, I was born on the 23rd, we met when we were 23, we married on the 23rd, and all this sort of stuff, which I was much more invested in.
But yeah, the long and the short of it is like you say, he starts to see these parallels between the book and his real life, and then starts seeing the number 23 everywhere. It's just all over the place. And then he kind of has this dream of killing his wife. The whole thing from there just descends into him basically having a mental breakdown for the remainder of the film. He explains how when he was a kid, there was this dog from the next door neighbour that made him want to be a detective. I don't know if you clocked it, but I thought Jim Carrey, dog, detective. It was a fucking pet detective, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I could see it coming.
That's clever. Do you reckon that was intentional?
Maybe, yeah. They cast him purely on that. They were like, we need a detective. And they were like, well, we do need one that relates to a dog. I've got just the guy.
It's really weird, though, for a choice, because, like, his job is that he works for some sort of, like, animal, like, protection corporation or something. Like, he's going around catching strays and making sure they're all right and stuff. I mean, they could have chosen any job, to be fair, but it's just a really weird job to select out of nowhere. And even though, like, he plays more of a serious role here, the first sort of 10 minutes you do get a lot of Jim Carrey randomness as normal. Like, he's driving past the dog and he meows at it. Why?
Yeah, he's just parked up, isn't he? And he just starts meowing, and the woman like tucks at him and he's like, sorry, I'm bored. Yeah, it's just, yeah, there's a few like, yeah, humorous bits. Did you notice that the dog's name was Ned? Now, I don't know. Do you know why he was called Ned?
Oh, is it because N is 19 and E is 2?
Absolutely. So if you give a value to each of those letters of the alphabet, like A is 1, B is 2. Ned, which is 14 plus 5 plus 4 equals 23.
Piss off, man.
Absolutely.
Oh.
But do you know why they cast it as a dog? Because if you put D plus O plus G, which is 4 plus 15 plus 7, that equal... Oh, no, that's 26. Bollocks.
You tried it, mate. You fucking tried. Oh, well, incidentally, that brings me onto the budget of this film. Do you want to know how much this cost to make, Stu?
It wasn't 23 million. It definitely wasn't 23 million.
No, it was 30. But Jim Carrey was paid exactly 23 million to star in the movie.
23 million.
It's a 30 million movie, and 23 is going to Carrey. So you've got 7 million leeway for the rest of the film.
That's ridiculous. Fair play to him, though.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it did really well. 77.6 it made at the box office. And the guy who directed it, Joel Schumacher, it was his 23rd directing project as well. It's just loads of coincidences. Yeah. Like, some people have even gone as far as, if you take the number of letters in Jim Carrey and the total number of letters in Joel Schumacher, it equates to 23. It's like, that's just a reach, though.
This is the thing, yeah. Like, you could find them anywhere, right? You could literally, like, break numbers down into anything and make them work somehow, right?
Well, a bit that confused me is when Carrey's in detective mode and he's talking to, I don't know who she is, some blonde woman. Dumb blonde.
It's Suicide Blonde, isn't it?
Suicide Blonde, that's the one.
Suicide Blonde.
I love that song still, you know. Check out the New Year's Evil review if you don't get that reference. But yeah, she's like, here's the crazy thing, right? So, my favourite colour's pink, and pink is made up of red and white. Red's 27, white's 65, that totals 92. Then pink has got 4 letters in it, so you divide 92 by 4, 23. Yeah. Oh my god. Fuck off, you bitch. You can do that with any number. So basically, here's a bit of history on the theory for you, because I thought I'd get informational for this one to pad the episode out, right? So the whole 23 theory, it's based on a real theory called the 23 Enigma. It's a type of apophenia, which is when people start making meaningful connections between unrelated things. And it was written about in a book in the 70s called the Illuminatus Trilogy. And one of the guys who wrote it cites a guy called William Burroughs, who was the first guy to believe in the 23 theory. So this Burroughs guy, he was an author, and he knew a captain of a ship called Captain Clark, and he bragged to Burroughs about he'd been sailing for 23 years and he'd never had an accident. But on the same day, his ship crashed and killed him and everyone else on board. So that's weird to begin with. But on the same evening, Burroughs heard that there was an airliner that crashed in Florida, killed its captain, who was also named Captain Clark, and the flight number was Flight 23. From then on, he started going, all right, this 23 thing's a bit of a coincidence. Let's go and apply it to everything in history, and the ones that we cherry pick that make sense, I'll write about them. But what started pissing me off in the film is, like, they started doing more coincidences. They were like, oh my god, so this thing plus this thing minus this thing is 32. That's 23 reversed. It's like, but that's a totally different fucking number then.
You just doubled your chances, haven't you? Of fucking... It's a bit silly, innit? But I kind of enjoyed it, but not all of it. You know, sometimes I just wanted to stab Jim Carrey 23 times. Why would you write on the wall and write on yourself? Why wouldn't you just use notepads?
Good point.
I can't work out why you would need to draw on your feet at any moment in time. No, there's not a moment in time where you're like, oh, I need to make a shopping list, but I've run out of paper. So what am I going to write? I'm going to write on my toes. Like, there's no... I know at school everyone writes on their hand, don't they? And whatever you write, like, you know, I love whatever on your hand and all that stupid shit that people used to do when you were like 13 or 23. But
hey, or 32, because it's 23 reversed.
Yeah. Buy 23 notepads and write in them. And why did they ship 23 boxes of nothing to that guy?
Because 23...
But it made no sense, because they were just trying to figure out where it was going. So just ship one box, see where it goes, and then turn up and do the same thing. Why do you need 23 boxes with fucking nothing in it? Why not put 23 things in it?
One box with 23. Yeah, because 1 plus 23 is actually 24, or 23 minus 1 is 22, so it doesn't work.
Well, why don't you put 22 things in the box?
Ah, but then we go, there's 22 things in there, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's literally that. It's just picking and fucking choosing what makes sense and what doesn't.
You put 23 stamps on it before you post it.
Alright, that'll never fail. It turns out that, yeah, even though Jim Carrey's been going round like, oh my god, this guy in this book is so similar to my life, it's because, yeah, you fucking wrote it, mate. Dun dun dun.
I don't know, I just couldn't work out why the guy slit his own throat in the shop.
Maybe he was just fucking sick of the film.
It just makes no sense, because he literally turns up and he says, you're Topsy Cretch, you're the author of the book. The guy then tries to stab him with a pen, legs it, and slits his own throat.
Yeah, you're right, that doesn't make sense.
I could not figure that out whatsoever. If, like, I found a book that was about, like, numerology and started getting into it, and then started going to Bonnie, that's my partner, by the way, you know, like, oh, I'm obsessed with this number, I keep seeing it, she'd just go, stop being a cunt, and that would be it, and she'd throw the book away. So I don't get how this guy draws his wife and his child into this, and they all get super obsessed with it.
Yeah, that's it, because he, like, Carrey starts saying all these things, and his son's like, oh my god, you're so right, it's your social security number, and it's like, what the fuck?
His son starts figuring out, like, all this shit, and especially so because the wife knows that he's wrote it, right? So the wife knows that he's had this breakdown before, and is obviously trying to support him. So when he starts to get obsessed with it, wouldn't you be like, let's not give him back this book? And also, hang on, I've just thought off the top of my head, this is a live thought, everyone. This isn't pre-written, this is live.
Oh my god.
At the beginning, she sees the book in a bookstore and goes and picks it up. How has she done that? Because it wouldn't have been for sale, because it's like a diary.
Yeah, and if she doesn't want Carrey to find out about this book, then why does she
give it to him? And even the psychiatrist that knows about it tells him to read it. And if they both know about it, why the fuck has he not been handed into the police yet?
Well, he hands himself in at the end, doesn't
he?
At
the end, when he realises it was him, he decides to let go of it, realises it's just a number, owns up to the murder, goes and serves his time, and knows that eventually he's going to come out. And then obviously at the end he looks at the clock and it says, it's 2:15, isn't it? So it says 23 on the clock. But yeah, like, surely the psychiatrist should be like, you've killed someone, we kind of have to alert the police to this. Not, I'm going to hide this with your wife.
Surely there's got to be some system in place, because, like, what is it? He discovers that he's the one who killed Laura Tollins. He became obsessed with the number 23 to the point where he went mental and attempted suicide, but instead he survived and lost his memory in the process. But rather than being like, right, we need to do something with him, even though he doesn't remember what he's done, he's still a fucking killer.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't send him back into society as a fucking dog watcher.
And also, if he'd previously tried to commit suicide where he jumped out of a building and smashed his face on the floor to the point that he was hospitalised, they showed him in hospital with a bandage completely wrapped around his face, and that was significant enough that he completely lost his memory, like, entirely. Why doesn't he have no scar on his face through the whole film?
I mean, isn't he, like, lying on the pavement and he's got his fucking arm just snapped?
He's got, like, no disabilities from it, even though you can see, because the two suicides in the film, or attempted suicide, you've got Suicide Blonde, when she jumps out the building, you see her, and she's almost, like, half sunken into the floor, isn't she, where it's just, she's almost been splattered. Well, they do the same with Jim Carrey when he's on the floor. They, like, kind of imply that he's been completely smashed in, because, you know, a lot of his face is just kind of missing. But then he's in hospital when his face is back, and it's just...
His face is back!
One of the police officers as well, I'm sure, makes some kind of comment saying, like, he attempted suicide like his dad, just his dad did a better job of it. I couldn't help but think, well, his dad didn't attempt suicide, his dad did commit suicide. Yeah. There's a massive difference there. He didn't just try harder at attempting it. Like... A
successful attempt at suicide is just suicide.
Yeah, so that didn't make sense to me either. So actually, when you pick it apart, there is a lot of, like, holes in the film that just really don't make much sense. But even with them, there was like 23% of this film I didn't like.
Hey, 32, I thought.
Yeah, well, to be fair, yeah, that's probably more factual. It was literally like that third that was like the detective shit. But the rest of it was really good. I did genuinely enjoy the rest of it. I thought, as I say, Jim Carrey played the part quite well. I think actually most people in the film played the parts quite well. The wife did a good job, whoever she is.
We'll throw her name on screen right now.
Yeah, let's just call her Jill for now.
Jill, yeah.
So, well, that's not very Hollywood, actually. What would, like, Linda Star Wars?
Linda Star Wars!
Sounds Hollywood, doesn't it? Linda Star Wars.
There we go.
Yeah, so... This is why I could never be a celebrity, because they'd be like, you need a better name than Stuart Moss, what are you going to go for? And I'd just be like, Johnny Maverick.
Fuck me. That's like that's basically every pilot ever.
Alright, Con, celebrity name, top of your head, what is it?
Oh, Derek Percussion.
Derek Percussion. What would Kofi's name be?
Fucking Vanilla Häagen-Dazs.
Madagascar Pod.
Oh, right, yes. So, there you go. That was our honest review of 2007's The Number 23. Bit of a more serious film this week. We probably will be returning to form next time round with another mental experience. But yes, thank you very much for supporting the show. Thank you for checking us out. If this is the first time, go and look at some of our previous reviews, of which there are 23 now. Aha, crazy, isn't it?
Yes.
See you next Friday, Ghoul Gang.